Welcome to the Great Loop Radio podcast, brought to you by America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. We're dedicated to sharing Great Loop information and inspiration with those actively cruising, planning for, or dreaming about a Great Loop adventure. I'm Kim Russo. I'm the director of AGLCA. Today, we're talking about one of the benefits of AGLCA membership, and that is our Harbor Host program. We're getting ready to recognize our brand new Harbor Hosts of the Year at our spring rendezvous. So it seems like a great time to tell all of our listeners a little bit more about that program. So Karen Nettles from the Homeport crew will join us to do just that. Before I bring in Karen, I want to take a moment to recognize and thank our Admiral sponsors who support AGLCA at the highest level. They are Curtis Stokes and Associates, Great Loop Yacht Sales, Passage Maker Trawler Fest, Skipper Bob Publications, and Waterway Guide Media. As always, we encourage our listeners to support these businesses that support the Great Loop. And with that out of the way, Karen Nettles, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Always enjoy being on the podcast.
Yeah, it's always fun to do these with you as well. So where should we start today?
You already mentioned that the Harbor Host program is one of our most popular member benefits. So why don't you tell us a little bit what the program is for some of the listeners that may not be familiar with it?
Sure. Basically, harbor hosts are any AGLCA members who volunteer to assist other members when they're coming through their home port. So if you are a harbor host, for example, in Charleston, um, you are basically raising your hand and saying, I'd love to be a local resource for loopers as they're coming through Charleston. So they give recommendations on things to see and do in the area. They often can recommend services. So if you are arriving in Charleston and your dog needs a vet or you need a dentist or a doctor, they can often help you with some local connections like that. And sometimes they go above and beyond, which is a little bit of what we'll share in the Harbor Host of the Year selection when we start to talk about that.
Okay, and we do have well over 500 harbor hosts in the program, so we know it's been around for a good while. How did it get started?
It basically started shortly, my understanding is it started shortly after AGLCA was founded in 1999. And the group was, of course, a lot smaller then. So as people finished the loop and had learned what they learned along the way and found some information along the way and got some help along the way, it was mostly gold loopers who were looking to give back to, or essentially to pay it forward so that the people coming after them could benefit from the experiences they had. And that's really kind of how it got started.
And it continues to be, like I said, one of our most popular member benefits, and members tap into that for sure. So how have you seen it change over time?
Well, as the association has grown, the harbor host program has grown and the number of harbor hosts has gone up exponentially. So I think over time, it shifted from being almost exclusively gold loopers who had gained knowledge doing the loop to also include people in the planning stages for the Great Loop. And I think over time, people started to realize, what better way to learn more about what it's like to actually be doing the Great Loop than to have a great looper in your car while you take them to a grocery store, or to share some local knowledge with them, or to go down to the marina and look for burgees or find loopers on Nebo and just stop in and say hello and offer them rides or offer them assistance. So it's really grown. As you said, Karen, over 500 harbor hosts around the route and even beyond that. Some are on the West Coast. We even have some in Australia. And they approach it a little bit differently. Obviously, there's not a lot of loopers looping through Australia, but they have been helpful to others in their area as a local resource about how an Australian can get everything in order to travel to the US and do the Great Loop.
Yeah, and like I said, there's just so many ways that they can offer assistance. Like I said, even distance doesn't keep them from assisting other loopers, especially those that are in other countries that have somebody there that's already done it. So that's really helpful. I know one of the things that we've done is we've implemented a yearly award. So can you tell us about the True North Harbor Host of the Year Award?
The Harbor Host of the Year award started, I think, pretty organically because loopers are a helpful bunch, but they also like to recognize someone who goes above and beyond for them. So, first Harbor Host of the Year award was given out in 2011, and we've continued to do it every year since then. The process calls for us to open a nominating period. So we take nominations now year round. And then in January of each year, we kind of call the nominations to a list of finalists. The finalists are then published on our website, and our members vote from among the finalists. We put a little bit of information about why they were nominated, and it's the membership vote. And then, shortly thereafter, we announce the Harbor Host of the Year. That person or couple is given free attendance at the Spring Rendezvous and a free lifetime membership in AGLCA. And that's the way that it goes. So we're about to do that for this spring's Spring Rendezvous. The winner's been announced, so it's no big announcement here, but we're about to recognize them at the Spring Rendezvous in May.
Before we talk about some of the recent winners, can you tell us how the award got its name?
Yeah, we renamed it the True North Harbor Host of the Year Award a few years back. The first recipients of the Harbor Host of the Year Award were Tom and Patsy Conrad. Their boat's name was True North. And Tom and Patsy did a tremendous amount of volunteering for the organization. And Tom was really the first person who helped with the Gulf crossing information, like we saw Dave Fuller do this year with his You Make the Call. So in recognition of their efforts, and in particular Tom's efforts when he passed, we renamed the Harbor Host of the Year Award as the True North Harbor Host of the Year Award. And it was especially fitting, as I said, Tom and Patsy's boat was named True North, but True North is actually your orienting point. So it's fitting. It's a point that helps you stay on track as you're navigating, and that's what the Harbor Host program is all about.
Well, and I know we like to recognize our members, and speaking of our members that do get the award, can you tell us who our most recent winners are?
Yep, and they are the couples that we are going to include in this week's podcast. The 2022 winners were Tsali and Jacque Bentley, and they are fabulous harbor hosts, the only people I know who have won the Harbor Host Award while actually also looping. So we'll talk to them a little bit about that. And then we'll introduce you to the 2023 winners who will be recognized at the Spring Rendezvous. They are Eric and Lynda Baumer. And they truly went above and beyond to welcome every single looper that came through their area in Clayton, New York. So we'll introduce you to both of those couples in just a minute. Karen, thanks for helping me with this. We're going to play a message from one of our sponsors, and when we come back, the Bentleys will join us. Made in the USA for over 50 years, Aerotech Laboratories, or ATL for short, manufactures fully collapsible, on-deck, range extension auxiliary fuel bladder tanks that are available in standard configurations from 25 to 500 gallons. These lightweight fuel bladders are constructed from a rugged mil-spec nylon reinforced coated fabric and are compatible with both gasoline and diesel. ATL fuel bladders provide invaluable peace of mind when traveling long distances and are trusted by thousands of captains and crews worldwide. Go farther safely with ATL fuel bladders. Learn more and shop online at atlfuelbladders.com. We're back on the Great Loop podcast. My next Tsali and Jacque Bentley. They are the Harbor Hosts of the Year who won the award for service in 2022 and are about to so-called relinquish the title, I guess we could say, to our new Harbor Hosts of the Year at the Spring Rendezvous. Tsali and Jacque, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here.
I know we've kind of described what the Harbor Host program is, but tell us why you specifically decided to become Harbor Host before you left for the loop.
It primarily stemmed from the fact of the people we met at the rendezvous in 2019. The people like Charlie and Robin and Robert and Kay and Herb and Dave and Claudia, the people who were before us that gave so much information, gave so much time, and just opened their arms up to us. And we thought that was so helpful that when we heard there was a Harbor Host program, we didn't hesitate. We thought, this is a great way to, in return, to pay it forward and to help others as people helped us. And that was really, it's just about giving a helping hand.
Yeah. And we can see in your background there, that is Goose Pond Marina, which is your home marina and where you serve as harbor hosts. So you are the only people I know who actually won the Harbor Host of the Year award while also looping at the same time? Because usually harbor hosts are kind of at home, they've either finished the loop or they're still planning for the loop. So how did you manage that? Now, you won the award for service in 2022. So when exactly did you leave for the Great Loop, and how did you manage to be the harbor host of the year for Goose Pond Marina while at the same being out on the loop yourselves?
Well, I'll answer that one. We left in November of 2021 and finished in August of 2022. So yes, we did win. As we all know, this was Tsali's award. Tsali is the harbor host of the year. We laugh because Goose Pond is not even on the loop. It's up the Tennessee River. And we always jokingly say that when you're coming when you're coming down the Tennessee River and you forget to turn to go down the Ten-Tom, Tsali's got you, because he's looking on Nebo every day, and anyone who forgets to turn down the Ten-Tom, he has them. And he is so proactive in reaching out to other boaters who are coming up the Tennessee River.
It was almost the fact that if they didn't turn right to go down where Charlie was, then I started stalking them. And honestly, I could never have done this without Nebo, because it gives the location of the loopers coming around, the loopers that are maybe going to go up to Knoxville or Chattanooga, which is where Goose Pond is. And as soon as they started making that trek up, I reached out to them through Nebo, and I still do. I continue to do that every single, not every single day now, but because most of the loopers have gone past that point. But during the season of October and November and early December, I'm constantly on Nebo looking for loopers going into that area and reaching out to them.
And were you doing that even when you were on the loop?
Absolutely. It was not only was I looking for loopers 3 days ahead of me and sharing information 3 days behind me wherever I was on the loop, but I was constantly looking at the ones going into Goose Pond. And because Goose Pond's tricky to get into. It's very shallow because of the weed growth. You won't really touch bottom, but your depth sounders will go off and scare the weebie-jeebies out of you. So so I just tried to give a comforting factor of those and those going in. And then I tried to give an idea of where they could stop before Goose Pond and after Goose Pond. So again, it was just reaching out, helping others. It was really the whole thing.
And we left again on our second loop in October of this past year, 2023. And of course, many loopers were still coming down the Mississippi River and the Tennessee River. And you reached out to many of them all through October, November, and December again this last year.
I did. I kept a list in the last 2 weeks of October, going in the first week of November. I was just looking earlier today. I reached out to 32 loopers. And of course, these loopers have to have Nebo to reach out. But I reached out to them and just proactively just tried to help them.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that, in addition to being proactive and, offering advice on how to get into the marina and potential stops before and after, what are some of the things that you or other harbor hosts are doing to help loopers coming through your home base?
Primarily, I think it's interesting. Some loopers will have more of an emphasis on what the weather may be on the Tennessee River in that area. And so that may be their interest. It may be where they want to reprovision. It may be that they've got a engine issue or an issue with the boat. There is a yard right there. So those are primarily the items that we talked about. And then I'll go on to say that not only do we serve as a harbor host there, but also when we're along the loop, if we find something that's helpful when we're driving by car, we'll help out to others as well, give them a ride or whatever.
That's wonderful. So one of the things I hear when I'm telling newer members about the Harbor Host program is some hesitance to reach out. In part, it's some people are just not inclined to ask for help, and some people find it awkward to call a stranger. I don't know if there are any strangers among loopers, but what would you say to somebody who hesitates to reach out to a harbor host?
Well, I think if a harbor host wouldn't sign up to be a harbor host if they didn't want you to reach out. So
exactly.
If they're not actively reaching out on Nebo, they certainly want boaters to reach out to them.
Well, and we just went through this when we left the boat at Hilton Head to come home for a couple of weeks to North Georgia. I reached out to the local harbor host for a ride to the airport, and one I couldn't get a hold of, and then the other one they came back, and unfortunately they had doctor's appointments the same time we needed to be at the to catch our rental car. But to answer your question, I think it's how you come across either using the AGLCA membership information, such as the email or text, the cell phone, or going through Nebo itself. It's giving a little information about yourself, and then also doing research on who that harbor host is. Because when I looked for the harbor host at Hilton Head, I discovered that there were gold loopers. So they more or less knew what I was doing. If you're looking for a planner, they're probably looking for a planner and harbor host. They're probably looking for someone that they like to learn from you. So I think in the initial connection is it very important to understand them and give a little bit of information about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree so much with what both of you said. Jacque, you're 100% right. These are people who are raising their hand and, saying, pick me, I'd like to talk to you. They wouldn't be listing themselves as harbor host if they didn't truly want to assist. I also, when we had a few times on our loop a need for a ride to the airport or something of that nature, I felt uncomfortable calling, asking for a ride. Because if we could find our way to a rental car, which in some places is a challenge, we can do it ourselves. So I typically would approach them asking them, is there a rental car place near that I'm just not seeing? Or is there, sometimes when there's no Uber, sometimes there's a local taxi that people know about that locals may know, but you may not. And I've always approached it from that perspective of, is there a taxi? How do I get to an airport from here? And almost without fail, they offered the ride, but it felt more comfortable to me to just ask for information on how I could get there rather than ask for the ride. And that's just my personality. There's nothing at all wrong with just saying, hey, I really need a ride to the airport. But we had harbor hosts give us rides, lend us their car for the whole time we were in town. Take us to their yacht club because we were not yacht club members, all kinds of things. And it's just, as you two know, it's a social trip and it's a social group and there are no strangers on the loop. So it's really just a great way to learn more about the town. And if nothing else, reach out to the harbor host and just ask what their favorite things to do in town are, because they certainly know. So for the two of you though, since you've kind of been harbor hosts all around the loop, what has been the most rewarding part of it for you? Because harbor hosts are doing it because they like it and find it rewarding. Some of them are doing it to pick your brains and learn more. So what's been most rewarding for you?
I don't know. I think it's just as Sally said earlier, it's a way for us to give back because of all the people who have given to us. And we think the AGLCA is probably one of the most positive organizations we've ever been involved with. And I would certainly tell boaters for them to be proactive and always think, put that kind of at the top of their mind of, hey, I'm going to call the harbor host when I get to this area. I think oftentimes we're so busy, navigating and looking at weather and those types of things that we forget to reach out. But, you don't want to stalk people all the time. You'd like for them to reach out as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've had several harbor hosts reach out to us as we're going around the second time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage people when they do get a text or a message on Nebo to at least respond.
Yes.
Don't leave that harbor host hanging out there because they've taken the time to reach out to you. Just say hello to them. Just say, hey, I'm passing through. I'm not going to stop in this area, but at least recognize and give them the appreciation that they should have for them reaching out to you.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And, if you're interested, anyone out there listening in the Harbor Host program, there is a field in the member profile in our database, and all you have to do is check that to become a Harbor Host. And Karen, who was in that first segment with us, will send you some more details on what's required. And essentially all we require is that you at least respond when somebody reaches out to you. if you are not in town or you don't know the answer to their question, that is absolutely a fine answer. And many places have multiple harbor hosts, so they can reach out to somebody else. But that works from both sides. We hate to have a harbor host who never ever gets a single call. And we hate to have a member who's trying to reach out to a harbor host and not getting a response. So it's all about the communication. And that's what this group is all about. The connections and the social interactions, as well as the informational interactions. And you two are prime examples of that. So Jacque, you called this Tsali's award because he did most of that. But for those of you who have not met Jacque and Tsali, they are regular speakers at our events. And when I usually reach out to see if they'll speak, Tsali always says, yes, Jacque will do it. So they're a good team like that. Jacque does the presenting and Tsali does the harbor hosting. So thank you for all you do for AGLCA and for your fellow members. And congratulations on being the 2022 Harbor Hosts of the Year. Are you ready to give up the title, so to speak, to the next recipients?
Yes, we're ready to pass it on. Ready to pass it on.
All right. Well, we will do that on the spring rendezvous to the recipients for service in 2023, which we have already announced are Eric and Lynda Baumer. So no big surprise there, but we are going to interview them in the next segment. So we will go to a message from one of our sponsors and then we'll come back with them. But Jacque and Tsali, thanks again. I appreciate having you here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for including us,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Embark on the journey of a lifetime with the new Leopard 40 Power Cat, the ideal companion for exploring America's Great Loop. Enjoy unparalleled comfort and fuel efficiency as you navigate this iconic waterway. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser or a first-time adventurer, the Leopard 40 Power Cat offers the ultimate in travel ease and luxury. It's time to set sail on your dream voyage, and it all starts with the Leopard 40 Power Cat. Discover a new level of exploration and embark on an unforgettable experience. Contact us today and make your Great Loop adventure a reality. www.leopardcatamarans.com.
Welcome back to the Great Loop Radio podcast. As you know, today we are covering our Harbor Host program and more specifically some of our True North Harbor Host of the Year winners. So I am thrilled to now introduce you to Eric and Lynda Baumer. They are the new Harbor Hosts of the Year that will be honored at our spring rendezvous. So Eric and Lynda, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Kim. I got to say, I'm blown away that we have been, 1, nominated and 2, selected to be Harbor Host of the Year. I think it's fantastic.
It's very humbling.
Yeah, truly was not expecting it.
Yeah, and you certainly went above and beyond, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, tell us a little bit about what first got you interested in the Great Loop in general, because you're still planning for the Great Loop, correct?
We are planning. One day there was a random post in my Facebook news feed, and I said, oh, I wonder what this is about. So I read a few more, and we love boating. And I said, this is right up our alley. So we joined the online group to kind of get, a little bit more information. And we were, we were sucked right in, but in a good way. It was awesome. It was a really nice welcome and meeting people at the rendezvous. And so, yeah, it's on our list.
Yeah, well, and you certainly engaged right away. Go ahead, Eric.
We've been lifelong boaters, just never on anything a scale like that.
Mm-hmm.
So always been on the water, always loved it, and it just seems a natural extension.
Mm-hmm. And you're harbor host in Clayton, New York. So is that where you've done most of your boating?
Yep. We are in the Thousand Island area, and at home we're in Rochester, which is in the Finger Lakes region, and there's a lot of great boating there too. But yes, we primarily do harbor hosting in Clayton, which is a little tricky from a harbor host perspective. It's not a straight shot, meaning it's not a place where loopers or boaters would just go in one direction. So I'm constantly looking on Nebo to see, are people coming our direction? Sometimes they are, but they might take a little side trip or go into Canada first or circle back around. So it's been challenging but fun.
It is. You're right. I hadn't really thought about that, but it is an area where people can be coming from a lot of different directions and have a lot of different plans. But tell us why you decided to become harbor host. As I said, you kind of jumped right in and have been to events, and but what was it about harbor hosting that made you decide it was something you wanted to do?
Well, it just seemed to be natural extension for us. I mean, Lynda and I have always helped people. Lynda's a nurse by profession, so truly that's what she does. I've always jumped in whatever project has been around, helped whoever I can. And when we learned about being a harbor host, it just made sense to us. We could take the opportunity to meet a bunch of people, learn about the loop, learn about boats, because like I said a minute ago, our boat's 21 feet. We're not used to the big ones. So being able to learn about that and meet everybody, it's just been great.
Yeah, we learned, I mean, as much as we might have helped people, they were really helping us as well, just with information and boat tours and lots of good tips and tricks as well. So
that's one of the things I really love about the Harbor Host program is it's really great for both ends of that. So the person who is on the loop is certainly getting assistance, but it's really, I think, great for some of the harbor hosts who are still planning to really have an opportunity to learn more from the current loopers. And of course, Gold Loopers is a chance for them to pay it forward. But so you were nominated by the Homeport Cruise, Julie Shea, and she is our member services coordinator. And sometimes she has more insight on a widespread basis on what some of our harbor hosts are doing, because sometimes the nominations are for a harbor host who went very far above and beyond for one particular member who had an extreme problem or issue. But in some of the cases, it's just a harbor host who repeatedly, consistently, over and over and over again for many, many loopers is proactive and reaches out to them. And that was the case, when Julie learned about what you had been doing for our members coming through Clayton. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you did as a harbor host.
Well, I'm going to leave this one on Lynda because I'm truly her support staff on this one. She grabbed this ball and ran with it.
It was awesome. So I learned about Nebo and how to use Nebo to, I'll say, monitor or stalk and kind of see where people were coming and going. It was kind of my first way to message out to somebody, and so I started just by sending them a message, like a one-liner of an introduction. Then I realized I made up kind of a Clayton tip sheet with our favorite restaurants, the Antique Boat Museum, a few other things, and I learned that I could actually attach that and message it through Nebo. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce to make up some welcome bags with some local merchants and their information and pens and pencils and things like that. Kind of reached out to a few loopers at the beginning to say, is this helpful? Do you not want more stuff? Because we know you have some limited space, but and they all gave us really, really good feedback. So we, changed a few things, but I think we ended up kind of touching base either through Nebo or in person with over 150 loopers in the summer. I mean, if some people weren't there, we tried. If you were in Clayton, there are like 4 main docks, and so we tried to just make the rounds and catch up with anybody who was in the neighborhood. We're usually up there on long weekends. This summer we will be up there all summer, so that'll be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. If someone wasn't there, if they were out and about, we literally would just throw a bag on their deck and send them a message saying that it was us, and it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, and that's really wonderful, because as you're coming into Clayton, there is a lot to see and do. And if you're not there for a long time, it's great to have some recommendations. We were fortunate to be there, I think, for pretty close to a week. And I think it was before you were the harbor hosts. But Clayton is also a place that's a little bit challenging if you need to do any off-boat travel, because it was one of the places that we went that we struggled to get to figure out how to get to an airport. And it was harbor hosts who came to the rescue and got us to where we needed to go. But what is kind of, the most unique thing about Clayton? We've talked about a couple things, but for those coming in, boating into Clayton, what are some of the most unique things, or that you would want people to know about getting there by boat and what you should do and see?
Well, the main dock right there, it's right alongside downtown Clayton, if you want to call it downtown Clayton. It's a pretty small village. They've done a great job over the past several years, really cleaning up the town. They buried all the wires underground. So it's just a really clean, nice looking, friendly town.
Very quaint,
Um,
lots of shops and restaurants.
yep, the Antique Boat Museum is right there,
It's a big draw.
which is awesome to see if you've never been there.
Yeah, the Antique Boat Museum is definitely not to be missed, but there were lots of great restaurants and really top-notch stores as well. And there's the jewelry store that sells the cleats.
Yep, the
And I
golden
see-
cleat.
Yes, I see loopers with those cleat necklaces or the cleat baseball caps, and I always think of Clayton every time I see them. So they really have, it's a really just unique and well done, very small, but absolutely everything you need. So hopefully that
Yeah.
will bring a lot of people to Clayton, and it's right there in the Thousand Islands. So you might be on your way to Alexandria Bay or back from Alexandria Bay or to Bolt Castle, or so much to see and do in that area. So we are very excited to recognize and honor the two of you at the Spring Rendezvous. That is coming up in just a little bit over a month. So it's all very exciting, and we just want to thank you for the service you've provided to Loopers and for supporting the organization and your fellow members. So thank you both for that, and congratulations.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything. It's been a great adventure so far and looking forward to more of it.
Excellent. We will see you in Norfolk.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks. And thanks to everybody who's watched or listened today. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Great Loop Radio podcast. Until then, safe cruising.